we've got Paul Meades here from Meades Co, and Meades Co are a very progressive firm of accountants. They're fully focused on how can they give more value to their clients, how can they be saving them tax, helping them to grow their businesses. And Paul invests very heavily into himself and into his team, making sure that they're bringing the very best of everything into Meades Co, so they can ultimately share that with their clients. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. And Paul has been using Go Proposal for a long time now. He's a huge fan of Go Proposal, actively recommends it to lots of accountants that he knows. And as well as using it in his firm, has really brought a lot of innovations to it as well, because Paul has really, because they're very tax focused in the way that you save your clients tax and achieve some fantastic results, the way that you price your tax services, you've got a lot of innovations around that, haven't you?
Yeah.
And so what Paul has been able to do is to bring that innovation back into Go Proposal, so that when someone signs up for it, they benefit from all of Paul's thinking and the work that they're doing here, so that it comes preloaded with all of that content. And what I've asked Paul to do now is if he'll kind of take us through his thinking behind how and why he's priced things in certain ways.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So this sort of comes down to the issue that you sometimes have, or used to have, with pricing, particularly tax returns, was that if you use a fixed fee, then those clients that have more complicated affairs are getting it cheaper.
Yeah.
And those that have simple affairs, you're probably overpricing, and eventually they will leave, and you just get left with a load of clients that you're doing lots of work for on a fixed fee.
Yeah.
The alternative is to consider time, start keeping timesheets for how long it takes you to prepare a return. But of course, from the client's perspective, that's really not very valuable, because it could be that somebody doesn't know how to particularly do something in a tax return, and therefore it takes them ages and they get charged for it. And nobody wants to keep timesheets in a progressive firm now anyway. So what we did was we went set about the methodology of taking the way that we request information from a client for their tax return and putting that into a series of options which we've got to include in the price of doing their return.
Yeah.
So whereas we might say to a client, do you have any dividend income, or do you have any interest you receive on a bank account, or do you have a self-employment or an employment, those are now separate questions that, when they're answered yes, actually add on to the cost of us producing the tax return.
Yeah.
So we charge for each different section. The basis of how you work out what those questions are is actually the tax return itself.
Yeah.
And in fact, we even go through it in the same order
Brilliant.
as the questions are in the tax return. So it keeps it very transparent, very easy for not just me, but more importantly my team, because I don't use Go Proposal that much, because of course I've managed to spread it throughout the firm, but it makes it very simple for a team member to run through the information given to us by a client, click yes, no in the different sections, produce the proposal, and then email it straight off to the client.
That's fantastic. And this means that you're able to price more profitably for the tax returns, and rightly so as well, because as I was talking to Paul earlier, when you actually record how much tax you've saved for your clients as well, and you present that back to them, and you present it on your website as well.
Yes.
And what you were saying is, very often at the end of the year, you know, the tax savings that you're able to make for your clients actually can, in some cases, exceeds what they're actually paying you.
They're normally more than the clients are paying us.
Yeah.
And I've had the clients say to me, that's great, because the reason they go to an accountant is because they want to be up on the deal. That's the terminology that they tend to use. Yeah.
And I think a problem a lot of firms can have is that they don't price properly. They don't price the way that they should be pricing for services such as this, which then means that they can't put the effort in that they need to give them the savings that's actually going to make that client want to stay, want to spend more with you, want to shout from the rooftops about you and everything else as well.
Absolutely. I've got an example of that, actually. We recently took on a new client who was paying £2,000 a year, agreed through Grow Proposal to pay us £2,500 per year, and in the first year, with just some very simple vanilla tax planning, a few changes, we've saved him £3,675, so he's now up on the deal. What then is also really important is those changes that we made will actually be changes that will impact his finances every year.
Yeah.
So we won't just leave it at that. Next year when we do his accounts, we'll look through and calculate what those savings, what those changes have saved in the next year, and remind him that's how much we saved in this year. And we'll do that every year for the life of that client.
Yeah. And I think that's such a key thing to note, in the fact that there's lots of accounting firms doing great work for their clients, but if you don't tell your clients how great it is that you've done, that you might as well not have done it, because they won't know it, they won't appreciate it, they won't value you. And that's when sometimes you can lose a client and you're like, you know, you don't realise the value we've given you. It's like, no, hang on a minute, you've not told them the value you're giving them. That's why you've lost them.
Yeah, exactly. Lack of communication.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I think when you get to that point where you can get them to spend more, so you can help them to save tax, and then they can see the tax to save the saving, it's then a very simple conversation to say, look, now let's have a look at how we can reinvest some of that money back into additional services where we can help you even further.
Yeah, and of course it then also stands you out as being the trusted advisor that you should be, and you get asked all sorts of other questions then around business because you're seen as the knowledgeable person. So this week I've been asked by a client to look at a proposal they've been given about taking away their server and moving into the cloud, into a hosted environment.
Right.
I'm an accountant, but actually I suppose I'm a business owner, and therefore I get asked those sorts of questions because I'm just seen as the trusted advisor.
Yeah, and this is an important distinction to make, which is why I believe you guys are so successful, why you're able to help your clients to the extent that you do, is because you don't see yourself as an accountant, you see yourself as a business owner first.
Exactly. I just happen to own a business that provides accountancy services, and obviously a lot more than just accountancy services.
That's right, that's brilliant. And the moment you make that little distinction, which is so subtle, and you see yourself as an as a business owner, you align yourself with your clients. Your challenges are the same as their challenges. Absolutely. So you've got server issues, you need to move into the cloud, you can relate to that and you can have those conversations, which is then enables you to have higher level services that you're selling, such as your board level services where you can go into the board meetings, because now you are the trusted advisor and they do want you to impact the business.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Great stuff. In terms of the way that people price or sell, you know, the tax services, what advice could you give to another firm who maybe has challenges around this area or struggles pricing it, or what would you advise them on? How would you help them?
I'd say two different bits of advice. Firstly, when it comes to pricing your services in general, use a tool. Obviously, I know I'm heavily biased towards Growth Proposal because I think it's great, but if you use a tool, then you can be more than just you being the only person that can price in your practice. When it comes to saving clients tax, charge a percentage of what you save them and make it contingent. That way, the client cannot lose.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the obvious thing to do.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And so you factor that into the way that you price, that's part of your terms?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we've demonstrated here and what I've just gone through with you in Go Proposal is how you price for delivering the service.
Yes.
How we would price for a piece of tax saving work would be completely separate, but we'd still do it through Go Proposal. We just have to, because of all the wording that's in there, we just have to then put in the price and say it's a percentage of what we can save. Yeah,
that's brilliant. And another point that you just kind of glossed over there, but I think it's so key, that, which is to use a tool that allows you to get everyone else in your company being able to do this, because the leverage that you can then get, you know, you can't grow Meades Co. You can only grow, the way I say it, you can only grow the people, and it's the people that you employ will grow Meades Co.
Exactly.
But you've got to give them the tools and get out of their way so they can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, at the end of the day, the way we work is that it's the client managers, the ones actually going to do the work or get the work done if you're outsourcing. It's them that needs to actually understand that they've got to use the tool to price so that they can price profitably and get on and get the work done efficiently. I haven't done a tax return or a set of accounts for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's what the team does. I focus on the strategy of the business. That's my role as the business owner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. And just to bring out another thing that we talked about before, about, you know, not that you necessarily ever, you know, want to sell Meades Co. It's obviously attached to yourself, but in terms of the value of your business, it's always very important to be mindful of how valuable Meades Co. is as a business. And as you were saying before, a lot of accountancy firms are priced at 1 times what their
GRF is.
Yeah, the GRF, and it can be even less than that if they've not quite kind of sorted certain things out. Because you're systemizing, because it's not as dependent upon you, because you brought a lot of innovative thinking, because you give fantastic value to your clients and all these other things, I mean, I'm just be guessing, but I would imagine that you have really moved that number up.
Yeah, I don't know what to, because I'm not at that stage of my career, but I would certainly like to think so, because the company essentially would be fairly easy to port into another business.
Yeah.
Because you could just follow the same systems and the same guidance that we've got. We've actually got a separate online tool called Suite Process, which is where all of our standard operating procedures are kept. So
Brilliant.
that's all in the cloud as well.
Yeah.
Another fantastic tool in the cloud that everybody can access at any time.
Yeah, and that's really important. I think what you've done very well is to be able to like kind of assemble the tools that you need to systemize your business in the cloud, to be able to...
Yeah, having tools like Go Proposal is just as important than having something like Xero.
Yeah.
You know, and it's you need tools to cover off every different area, and you pick the best ones you can, get the ones that your team like. They love Suite Process, they love Go Proposal, so therefore if they love it, guess what? They use it.
Yeah, yeah, that's brilliant. That's great. Thanks, Paul.
That's all right. No
Cheers.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay.